And my final question is along these same lines. It's one that you and I were speaking about before we got started. But when does Jay Steinfeld retire from Blinds.com?
Well, I'm not working now. So why would, this is not even, it's not work. I'm living the values that I love. So there's no reason to stop. I do have 2 grandchildren and another one on the way. But I get to see them and I get to travel whenever I want. So my life is very blessed and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah. I have other questions, but I want to turn it over to the audience if they have any out there. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, I've known a number of people who sold their business to private equity with the plans of, hey, this additional capital is going to come in and I can really grow it. In a year, they were frustrated and quit. You seem to have done quite the opposite. You've gotten even more energized.
Yeah.
What was the trick in either selecting the partner, selecting the vision, or just working with them to stay engaged and not get frustrated?
We asked a lot of questions as to what the goal was. It was a lot of money, so there wasn't a lot of risk to do it.
But you could have taken the money and left.
I could have, but because of all the things that I just said,
yeah.
All those things are actually happening. If they hadn't happened, I would be gone. And they know now that as long as it's fun for me and it's fun for our team, we're going to continue to do this because this is what we like to do. Mm-hmm. And I believe it was because we were so insistent and clear on what our vision is and what we need to do to get there and what things could get into our way. So if we saw a roadblock, we either knocked it down or we kept jumping up and saying that's a roadblock that's going to interfere with what's in your best interest, not just our best interest. And occasionally that meant if I had a roadblock in a person, I'd have to go up maybe 4 levels up, like right to the CEO. And once they knew I had a good relationship with the CEO, and even Bernie Marcus, who was one of the founders, I could talk directly to Bernie Marcus. And the old CEO, Frank Blake, liked me, and we still talk. I had breakfast with him a few weeks ago. He's no longer the CEO. But I just have no problem going to the people that I know need to provide the air cover, the strategic guidance, if you will, to ensure that the people who are below them who can't take that risk. Because when you're in an organization, unless you know your boss is in agreement with you, it's just really difficult to go against your boss. Mm-hmm. It's really kind of stupid to do it. So I get that. So I needed to provide the air cover for them by talking to people, and there may have been a few people that weren't too happy about that, but they're happy. They're doing great now.
Yeah. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
First, thank you for all that you do for Houston Technology Center and the entrepreneurs there.
Thank you.
You make so much possible for them. Question I have is often in coaching those startup companies, there comes a time when they're highly focused on their product, and they're now supported, if you will, by venture capitalists, angels, first round type of money, second round type of money. And they have to switch their brain to the T and C side. What are the terms and conditions versus just the overall offer? And they have some breakdown that happens there because they're not as educated first in that space. How did you go from focused on your ops and your product to understanding T's and C's and having a comfortable conversation?
Well, I get the T's and C's, and that's a technical discussion. But I think what you need to do when you're talking to whomever that may be, and it's not like everybody has a lot of options and who you might want to get your money from, but you better know what their strategic vision is for you as well. So if you have 7 offers and one is at X and the other one's at 90% X, but that 90% X is absolutely convinced you that they are on the same path and see the company the way you do, that's a better deal for you. So I think the younger companies need to really choose their partner strategically first. And if you've got that strategic match, those partners are going to feel your match and they're going to feel your passion and you're going to get a better offer because they know you've got this conviction about what you want to do that's aligned with them. If all you're doing is bartering back and forth and bantering back and forth on what the valuation should be and worrying about T's and C's and valuation, if you don't have that alignment, it doesn't matter how much they gave you, even if it's 2x what somebody else was, because you could be out in another 6 months because what you want to do is nothing at all what they wanted to do, and you didn't even talk to them about it. So, but for me, to answer your question specifically, I had an awesome attorney who I'm in Vistage, which is a CEO peer group, been in it for 11 years, and one of the speakers was an attorney who is one of the best business partners I could have ever had. She is just, I think I hired her in 2006, and there's no way this would have happened without her. She wasn't just an attorney, she was a business advisor, she's a negotiator. She helped me understand when I made a couple of other acquisitions, some deal points, when we borrowed money from the bank, when we took the equity raise from Morgan Stanley. She was heavily involved in all of that. And you better have a good attorney, and do not scrimp on a good attorney. Feel really comfortable with that attorney. Make sure they know exactly what they're doing, that they're highly experienced in your space, and that they've done a lot of those kinds of deals on both sides. She's done 500, 600, 700 deals. She's very senior. She's in Boston, and not that Boston is a great place to be, but she's just not. You know, I sought out somebody in Boston, was my point. So find the person who you feel comfortable with, that you can communicate with, that doesn't seem to be bullshitting you, and will actually speak their mind. I found that there's a lot of attorneys who will tell you the downside and the downside and the downside, and then won't give you advice. She said to me, well, you've got this downside, but it's a minimal risk, so I wouldn't worry about that. You've got this downside, this is something serious, we're not budging on that, because if this happens, you're out of business. So you need that kind of guidance, and somebody who will speak up and not just let you make your own decision. And I'm very, very, very grateful that I was able to find her.
Any other questions out there? Yeah.
So you talked about Home Depot making the acquisition, not just for the technology, but for the organizational culture. And having worked in a very large company myself, I know that very large companies sort of try to infuse their culture within companies that they acquire. But what has been the response on the flip side? I mean, it sounds like it's worked well for Lines.com, but how has the response been on the Home Depot side of recognizing that you guys are different?
Well, they knew we were different from the beginning, and we always felt like Home Depot was this giant vat, barrel with water, and we were this one little dropper of maybe red dye, magic red dye, and we put a couple of drops in there. You can see it tinted the water. So we're there barely, but we're there. And that's how we see ourselves. The other metaphor that I like is we are Tony Stark. And you know who Tony Stark is, right? Iron Man. And Jarvis in the suit, that's Home Depot. Mm-hmm. So we get in the Home Depot suit with Jarvis and we break up shit. But without each other, we can't do that. So they can't do without us, Tony Stark, and Tony Stark can't do it without Jarvis in the suit. And we're actually creating this big electronic digital board that they don't know about. Don't send this to them. On the second floor, that's going to be this whole joystick deal of us getting into this Home Depot Iron Man looking suit, and he's going to be flying around in this Tron. It's going to be super cool, and it's got power-ups as we go through all these different products that we want. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back.
So at some point early on, you took money, right?
At some point early on, I took money.
Yeah.
Early on, during Blinds.com, you decided you needed more money. What
Yeah.
and out there and passionate about it. So who gave you the vision? So as an entrepreneur, you know, it's $10 million company, growing my business.
Well, I did take in some kind of a friends and family round right up at the beginning in 2001, and that was to acquire my first company that was based in St. Augustine, and they were doing about $3 million at the time. So together we're doing actually about 4.5, and that first year we did 9. So I had a handful of people, and they were on the board, but it wasn't really a board. They were board members, and there was some governance, but I don't know that we ever had a board meeting. We talked, and we had resolutions, but it wasn't really the way a board meeting is supposed to be. Once we went to Morgan Stanley, then we had a board. That was a real board. So they had a seat or two seats on the board. We had a couple of outside people, that former chief marketing officer of Staples, and another person who's president of this Hong Kong company, of a multi-billion-dollar company. He was tremendous as well. And then myself. And we had real board meetings with proper governance, and that attorney sat in on those meetings and helped provide the governance for these very proper board meetings. When we took that money in, that money was used to buy out all the prior stockholders.
So they brought the team. They brought the leadership of the team.
They brought.
The leadership. They brought the Staples guy.
They didn't bring. Actually, no. I brought him.
So that's what I'm saying. How did you figure out? How did you meet those people? How did you?
I don't know. I read a lot. I studied.
Had some major things that happened to get you past that place.
When you want something, then you don't stop until you figure out the way to get there. And I think that's what I did. I was a constant learner, reader, very observant, studying best practices, and was willing to take small chances and experiment without fear for the purpose of getting better. So all I was doing was living my core values. I hate risk. I am risk adverse, but yet I say experiment without fear of failure. Well, if you experiment and the downside risk is small, there's nothing to fear. So that's what I would do. I would experiment frequently and try a lot of things, knowing that the downside risk was never that bad. It would never sink the ship.
The other thing I'd add, I mean, just to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2003, 2004, 2005, e-commerce as a business is not anywhere where we knew it to be today, in the sense of valuations for companies. And so 4.5 in revenue wasn't something to turn away from for a younger company at that point, right?
That's true. And when I went full-time online, which was 2001, and I sold my store, it was only because I was doing as much online as I was in my store with a lot fewer hours. So the risk to me was, well, there was no risk. I already know I'm doing more with less effort, and that was fun.
Yeah.
And instead of busting my ass going to people's homes every night and during the week and all day on Saturday, and then paperwork on Sunday, that wasn't a great life. And I wasn't building any value. I was making a living, but I wasn't creating real value. And having this business allowed me to create value, not income.
We have time for about 1 or 2 more questions if anybody has any. Yeah.
Did you ever have a rogue investor or I guess family or anybody else who invested that you wanted out because they were trying to control? And what was that process like to get them out, or did Morgan Stanley have to buy them out?
There was one investor who was problematic. And one of the advantages of selling the company was getting rid of that investor. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Jay, thank you very much for taking the time. If nobody else, oh, we got one in the back. Sorry.
Of all the books you read, what was the most influential?
Well, there's like different topics. So if you gave me a topic.
Marvel comic books would be my guess at
Well,
this point.
I like science fiction.
Business book, I guess.
Well, this is not really a business book, but it's kind of a business book. Because I mean, I can tell you the usual ones like Good to Great and Built to Last and Execution, those types of things. High output management. I mean, those are like the basics. But probably the thing that taught me how to create a story as opposed in selling with stories that resonated as opposed to just sending a spreadsheet to somebody was Tell to Win by Peter Guber. That is an awesome book. And I had when we were looking to raise money, the first 6 people that we presented to, I got no takers, none. After I read that book, 7 offers. Completely changed my methodology. So that was quite instrumental, Tell to Win. Now, there's one other book that's called Just Listen, which seems like the opposite, and this is for relationships. So if you're married or you have a significant other, that's a great book too. It's by a hostage negotiator on how to listen to other people, understand how to motivate them, how not to be triggered, things like that. So Tell to Win and Just Listen, I think, are 2 awesome books that people generally don't know about.
You're the second one to recommend Just Listen to me today, so I'm going to have to.
The second, really?
Yeah, today. I did that, so it's obviously got good recommendations.
It's a really good book.
Everybody, give one round of applause for Jay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.